guys, it's Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing and welcome to Vlogmas Day 4, and this is going to be my weekly wrap up. So I had a pretty decent reading week this week and I read some pretty good books, some pretty bad books, so it was a nice kind of mix. And the first book that I finished this week was The Diabolic by SJ Kincaid. This is kind of a YA sci-fi slash dystopian kind of book, and it's been doing the rounds on BookTube, and I spotted it on my library e-services app, so I got it on my phone and I really enjoyed this book. First of all, I'm going to give you a little bit of a summary because I feel like some of the summaries I've seen on other BookTube channels have been a little bit off. I think people are a little bit confused about what exactly the book is about before reading it, because it can be a little bit hard to explain if you haven't read the book. So basically it's kind of this kind of sci-fi-esque world where there's different planets that are all ruled by this one kind of emperor that's part of something called the Grand Illiqui. There is a girl called Donia or Sidonia, and people call her kind of Donia or Donia, and she is kind of the daughter of these kind of a senator. And there's this thing with the children where they're given this kind of almost like a guard, a security guard, but these security guards are kind of bred from kind of test tubes in a way. They have human DNA, but they're bred and brought up in a way where they're kind of basically turned into trained killers, and they're kind of almost told that they're more like animals than humans, that they don't have human emotions, that they're only trained to kill and to look after this one person that they're designed to protect, and they're kind of built in a way that they can only love this person that they're designed to protect, or at least they're kind of brainwashed into thinking that anyway. So Nemesis is this thing called the Diabolic, and she is supposed to protect Sidonia, and when Sidonia's father angers the Emperor sends for Sidonia to go over to this kind of a place where all the kind of the royals and the nobles and stuff gather, which is where the Emperor lives, but they know that this is kind of a way to try and hurt Sidonia because her father has angered the Emperor. So instead what they do is that they send Nemesis in Sidonia's place. I really enjoyed this. It was different. It was different to a lot of other books that I've read. I got into the story quite quickly. Once you kind of learn the world, it's quite easy to follow along with what is happening. So it was really great to kind of learn about that. I liked Nemesis as a character. She was pretty great, and the struggles she has with her humanity and kind of learning her humanity and figuring it out and kind of trying to be a normal human being, I guess, in this world, and not being a trained assassin or a trained killer. That was great. I really enjoyed that, though she's not one of these people who, you know, will balk at killing someone if they need to be killed, or if she needs to do something to protect someone else. Like, she can be really vicious. She can revert back to what she was basically created to do very easily. So she does have a lot of growth, but there is still elements of, you know, the original Nemesis, I guess. Yeah, I just really enjoyed this book. I thought the ending was quite neat. It tied up really nicely. I would love for this, I'm pretty sure this is a standalone, I would love more in this world because I just really enjoyed the world and I really enjoyed Nemesis and where she went. So I would love more, but I'm pretty sure it's a standalone and all kind of tied up in a neat little bow at the end. So I don't think that there's not like a real need for another book, but I would just like another book anyway. So I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars because I just really enjoyed it. And yes, I would definitely recommend people to check it out. And I think to kind of give it a little bit of a while, it kind of takes a while to get really into the book. The next book I read was A Little Something Different by Sandy Hall. This was my November TBR jar pick. Yeah, my November TBR jar pick. And this is basically a kind of little YA, not really YA, it's just a contemporary book, adult contemporary book, because the kids are in college, they're like in their 20s or early 20s, and it's basically a love story told through everyone else surrounding these two people except them. So it's like people who are seeing them and seeing the chemistry they have and wanting them to be together and, you know, hoping that they do end up together. And I was really looking forward to this. Have had this on my shelf for quite a while, and I was really looking forward to reading it when I picked it out. And I absolutely hated this book. Like, I hated this book. I gave it a 1-star review. I was really kind of mean in my review. Oh, it was just so boring. I mean, you're hearing about these two kind of blasé, bland, boring characters. You know, they don't really have anything exciting about them, except the guy is really shy, which apparently makes him really, really cute, and everyone loves him because he's so shy. But he was almost like painfully shy. I didn't like him. I didn't see what was so attractive about him, because he was just so annoying, and she was kind of annoying, and I'm just like, I don't know, I just felt like the two characters in this were quite pathetic in the way that they couldn't even talk to each other, even after like 5 months of like kind of saying hi to each other. They would never even like, you know, they were just so chicken, the both of them, and I just got really, really I'm not, like, I don't mean to sound mean, but it just got really, really frustrating as a reader. Like, what's the point in reading this book when you're hearing the same kind of things over and over and over again, which is why it got so boring and so repetitive. Nothing was happening. So you'd hear like about the guy going to the coffee shop, and you're hearing about it from the barista, and you hear from the barista how Gabe saw Leah and asked her if he could sit down in front of her, and they chatted for like 10 minutes, and then they got up and left, and that's grand. But then you hear from Gabe's roommate, who ends up getting the whole story again from Gabe's point of view, and I'm like, didn't I just like literally read what happened? Like, why do I have to read it again? And then it could happen again when Leah comes back to her friend and tells her friend what happened, and it's just like, it was just all these boring repetitive scenes, and like nothing was really happening. And then like there's this professor in this who decides that like every year she's going to like ship a couple in her class, and she wants them to get together, and Leah and Gabe are the couple that she wants, and she's like talking about Leah and Gabe to like her teaching assistant and then to her wife at home, and she's like just talking about different things, and then talking about how they come into her office and like, talk to her like privately and stuff like that. And I just found it, like, even though it's a book, I still found like really, really unprofessional that a teacher would talk about kind of maybe private things that a student would say to them in a private meeting to like her spouse at home. Like, I don't really think that that's supposed to happen to an extent, and I just thought that the whole teacher's actions in this book was really unprofessional. And there's a girl in it in the class that kind of has her eyes on Gabe, and she's like, oh, like, because this girl apparently looks and talks like a valley girl, she's a slut. And I just thought there was like this kind of like slut shaming thing about it, and I was like, well, maybe this girl's a really nice girl. And they were like all annoyed that she was taking the second class the next semester because they wanted Leah and Gabe to just take this class, and this girl took the class as well, and the teacher was getting annoyed that this girl would have the audacity to take the class. And it's like, maybe she's taking the class because she just actually really likes writing, like not because Gabe is in the class. Like, I don't know, the teacher was just so unprofessional, and it really, really irked me. It really, really annoyed me. So I hated this book. 1 star. I don't really recommend. The only reason I finished it was because it was so short, but as soon as I finished it, I like threw it away from me because I just really, really hated it. The next book I read was kind of a mystery book that I got off NetGalley, and it was called Deadly Dog Days by Jamie Blair. And this is basically about a woman called Cam. She's like middle-aged, she's like just about to turn 40, and her life is kind of in this rut. Her husband has, she's separated from her husband, she doesn't really have a proper job, and then one day she finds a woman's body in the canal, and she ends up kind of getting herself stuck into this investigation of this murder because people start suspecting that she was the killer. So she ends up having to adopt like these 5 dogs that belonged to the dead girl, and it's kind of her putting her nose into the investigation and trying to figure out what happened. And it's kind of set in this small, sleepy kind of town where everyone knows everyone, and everyone's business is spread around town within 10 minutes of the first person finding out, that kind of thing. And this was alright, like, it was okay. I'm glad I didn't really spend too much time reading it. It was like a day and a half reading, like kind of skim reading some parts of it, because like it wasn't the best written book I've ever read. It was like slightly entertaining in kind of, you know, this town kind of Stars Hollow-esque Heart of Dixie kind of town that was kind of kooky and had kooky characters, and yeah, like, so it was okay for that point of view. But like in terms of writing and plot, I felt like it was a tiny bit messy. It was quite unrealistic. Like, some things that the girl did was just really, really unrealistic and stupid at most points. Like, she acted pretty stupidly a lot of the time, and I just, yeah, like, it was okay. I gave it like a 2.5 stars because I didn't hate the book. I kind of enjoyed it in like that I was like, this is kind of so stupid, but it's kind of fun at the same time kind of read. So yeah, that was that. I probably wouldn't read any more. I think this is going to be like the first book in a series. So I don't think I'd read any more in the series, but like for just the one book, it was like an alright read. It wasn't too bad. After that, I finished Traitors Blade by Sebastien de Castell, and this is the first book in the Greatcoats trilogy. And this is basically about this kind of fantastical land where there was a king who had these warriors. They were kind of like soldiers slash magistrates that were able to kind of lay down the law, and they were like the king's soldiers in a way, and they were like trained really, really well, and they were like answered only really to the king, and they were called the Greatcoats. And then the king was like killed by the dukes of the land because they didn't really like him kind of, I think, taking control of their lands, so they killed him, and the Greatcoats have kind of been scattered across this land, and they were after getting a really bad reputation, and people called them the Tattercloaks instead of the Greatcloaks. And yes, and it kind of starts from there, and there's this guy called Falcio, and he's like the leader of the Greatcoats, and he's on this kind of quest that the king set him to do before the king died, and it kind of starts from there. And then himself and his two friends, who are also Greatcoats, they end up kind of getting framed for this murder, and they have to kind of figure out what's going on, while at the same time trying to see if they can find out, basically complete the king's quest that he asked them to do. I really, really enjoyed this. It took me a while to get into it, but once I got like kind of halfway through and the story really started getting going, I couldn't put it down. I really, really enjoyed it. I would have finished it quicker, just I had things to do this weekend, so I had to kind of put it on the back burner for a little bit, but otherwise I would have finished it within a couple of days. I really, really enjoyed it. It reminded me a lot of the Three Musketeers in a way. Like, you have these kind of soldiers who, you know, they're quite, they're supposed to be quite loyal and like just, and they have their own sense of values and rules, and you know, they're supposed to be like kind of they kind of look after the people in a way, I guess. I really enjoyed that, and I just like that kind of feel for it. The fight scenes in this were incredible as well, and I actually read the back the author was a fight choreographer for a while, and you can really, really see that through the fight scenes in this book. Like, I would love just like a TV show for this series because of the fight scenes, because I say they would be incredible to watch, and like they're told really, really, really well. Sometimes the fight scenes in books, I get kind of bored of them because I'm kind of like, ugh, like, come on, just get it over with so you can do whatever. But with these ones, they were just so fluid and told so well that you could really see it in your mind when it was happening, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the ending of it, and how it ended, and I'm really, really excited to pick up the next one, which I'm definitely going to do soon. As soon as I see it in the library, I am going to pick it up and finish it, because this was a really, really great first book in a series. Can't wait to read the rest. And I gave this like a really, really strong 4 stars, just because it took me a little while to get into the story properly at the start, but the second half of the book was probably a 5-star read. It was brilliant. And then at the moment I am kind of less than 100 pages from finishing Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier. I am reading this with Karen over at Rotherby Reading. She has finished it already because she had to finish it to bring it back to the library, but we had a really good time reading it, and I just fell behind a little bit, like as I said, just busy weekend. So I'm hoping to finish this tonight. This is probably going to be a 4-star read. This is my first Daphne du Maurier book, so I'm really happy to be finally reading a book by Daphne du Maurier. And this is about a girl called Mary whose mother dies, and she ends up going to live with her aunt and her uncle in a place called Jamaica Inn, but it's kind of shady, and Mary doesn't really know what's going on, and she wants to figure out what's going on, and her uncle is an abuser and a drunk, and he's not a very nice man, and she basically ends up at this place and trying to figure out what's going on, and it kind of goes from there. But yeah, this is really, really atmospheric, really, really easy to read. I didn't know how hard the writing would be to read, like whether it's going to be kind of like Austen-y or like that, but it's very easy to read, very easy to fall into the book. As I said, very atmospheric. You like literally feel like you were in the marshes by the Jamaica Inn. She tells it really, really well, so at the moment this is going to be like a solid 4-star read for me. And then I also forgot to pick from my TBR jar in my December TBR the other day, so I have my TBR jar here, and I'm going to pick out a book. Now, I haven't been great in like reading the books straight away, so maybe I won't read it this month, but if I don't read it this month, I will carry it on into January and read it then. So I have one picked out here, and it is The Emperor's Blade, which is on my Kindle. I don't have the author down, but I will put up a picture of that at the side of the screen. And yes, so I'm looking forward to that. It sounds like a fantasy book, so hopefully I will like it. So that is it for this week, guys. Please let me know if you guys have read any of the books I've read, what you guys think, and I'll see you guys again next time, which is tomorrow, for my next Vlogmas video. Bye!